not only murder, but consume victims as well. Why do some killers cross the line into evil's darkest corners? In Germany, Armin Meiwes prowls internet chat rooms, hunting for a dinner guest. He eats the victim. Delusions tell Richard Chase he must consume human organs and blood, or he will die. His rampage claims 6. In Florida, Rod Farrell believes he is a vampire. His twisted fantasy takes the lives of 2 people. Fueled by delusion, fantasy, and even a desire for pleasure, these killers are propelled to commit evil acts. But not all killers are equal. What separates these killers and the fantasies that propel them? Now there is a scale with 22 levels that decodes a killer's motive, method, and mind. The more heinous the crime and the more rational the perpetrator, the higher the criminal is placed on the scale. Creator of the scale, Dr. Michael Stone, forensic psychiatrist from Columbia University.
Cannibalism and consuming human blood, that is, vampirism, awaken our most ancient and intense fears. These are not simple crimes of murder or violence. Rather, they are acts that violate all the boundaries between right and wrong that we have established as a society.
What is the source of these violent predators' darkest desires? And what causes some of them to be overtaken by madness and others to torture and kill for pleasure? To delve into the world of cannibalism, Dr. Stone starts with one of the world's most recent and notorious cases. The case of Armin Meiwes. In 2001, Germany. 41-year-old Armin Meiwes invites a man he met on the internet over for dinner. The meal will consist of red wine, fruit, and the main course will be the guest himself. Meiwes kills and dissects the victim. For the next few months, he will slowly consume him. Each meal is prepared with intricate care, savoring every bite with a carefully chosen wine. Why would someone not only kill, but also consume their victim? What is the motivation for such a grisly crime?
Cannibalism has always been considered the most gruesome of crimes, for it is a crime that transgresses against the most sacred rules for living as civilized creatures, that we do not tear the flesh, devour, and annihilate another human being.
1969. Armin Meiwes is a happy child. He spends his days playing with his 2 half-brothers and building model houses. But Armin's world crumbles. Shortly after his 6th birthday, his father leaves home, never to return. That same year, Armin's half-brothers abandon him to live with their biological father. Armin is devastated. He is left to live alone with his domineering mother. His days are now filled with joyless, menial tasks. Under the watchful eye of his mother, Meiwes is given endless chores around their dilapidated house. His mother refuses to let him play with neighborhood children. Though it is the 1970s, Armin is forced to wear traditional lederhosen to school. He is mocked by his classmates. Isolated, with few friends, Armin begins to develop disturbing habits. He spends hours dissecting dolls. taking them apart piece by piece. Grilling their body parts. Armin is fascinated with the human body. He creates an imaginary brother. He begins to have fantasies about dissecting a body and eating human flesh. With time, his secret fantasy grows in intensity.
Mives gives a picture of violent desires, stretching back to his earliest years. The control and abuse exhibited by his mother, and his detachment from the world after his father and brother leave, push him toward an obsession with the only world where he can be happy, the world of fantasy.
As an adult, Mives' mother continues her controlling and abusive presence. She chaperones him on dates and insists on attending social functions as his escort. He is unable to form lasting relationships. His isolation drives him to look for companionship on the internet. His childhood fantasies of cannibalism take on a sexual tinge. He spends hours trolling the internet, looking for a young, physically fit man that he can not only have sex with, but also eat. In 1999, when Mives is 37, his mother dies. Free from his mother's controlling grip, his focus turns from a life of servitude to one of self-gratification. He posts advertisements on the internet for victims willing to let him eat them. The email address, anthropophagus, an ancient Greek term for cannibal.
Mives' fantasy world becomes all the more bizarre thanks to his isolation from his peers and his inability to form close attachments to anyone. To deal with this overwhelming loss, Mives seeks to restore that loss symbolically by taking into himself another person.
2 years after beginning his quest, Mives' fantasy starts to become reality. 43-year-old Bernd Brandes answers an internet posting. He offers himself to Mives with the simple phrase, "I hope you find me tasty." On March 9th, 2001, Bernd Brandes visits Armin Mives' house. He is a willing participant in Mives' fantasy. Mives feeds him a cocktail of sleeping pills and cough medicine. Brandes slips into unconsciousness. For Mives, it is the pinnacle of a lifelong fantasy. After a kiss, he stabs Brandes to death. He drains the blood out of the lifeless body. He intricately dissects and freezes 44 pounds of flesh, enough to satisfy his craving for several months. After he finishes Brandes' body, he goes looking for new victims. 5 months after killing Brandes, Mives posts a new ad. He wants another willing victim. He boasts of the slaughter on an internet chat room. A user contacts police. Mives is arrested. Police find the remains of Brandes and a videotape depicting the murder. The video is so disturbing, investigators seek psychological counseling for themselves. Mives is eventually convicted of murder, and in May of 2006 is sentenced to life in prison. Dr. Stone considers the crimes of Armin Mives.
Mives displays the signs of many fantasy-based egotistical killers. His lack of psychopathic tendencies and his rational demeanor before, during, and after the murder is what sets him apart. The bloodletting and dissection of Brandes would lead me to place Mives at level 14 But because the motivation of his crime is not to torture and mutilate his victim, and the fact that he sedated Brandes before killing to avoid inflicting pain, I place him lower on the scale. For these reasons, I would classify Armin Meiwes at level 7, highly egocentric murderers who killed for narcissistic reasons.
What are the roots of Armin Meiwes' desire to consume human flesh? Meiwes tells a courtroom that the impulse to eat another human being dates back to being abandoned by his father and brothers as a child. Is it possible that memories of traumatic events can be an ingredient in the twisted crimes of killers like Armin Meiwes? Science is now exploring the impact emotionally charged memories have on the brain. How can certain memories become more ingrained in the brain than others?
Although we do know that memories are very difficult to localize in the brain. It's something that has been sort of the holy grail of memory research.
Dr. Krista McIntyre of the School of Behavioral and Brain Science at the University of Texas at Dallas is trying to unlock the impact of memories on brain and social development.
I study the neurobiology of learning and memory, and I particularly focus on the consolidation of memories that are considered emotionally arousing.
In order to unravel the mysteries of the human brain, Dr. McIntyre starts with an animal brain. By examining the learned responses of rats, Dr. McIntyre hopes to answer questions about the origins of memory and the longevity and power of emotionally charged memories.
Take a rat and place the rat in the light compartment of a two-compartment alleyway. So one compartment has a very bright light above it, and the other compartment is dark. And rats are nocturnal, and they tend to prefer the dark, so they'll enter the dark compartment fairly quickly, and we block them in there.
Inside the dark end of the alley, Dr. McIntyre stimulates the first group of rats with a mild electric shock. A second group of rats is also allowed to enter the dark section, but given no electric stimulation at all.
We take some animals, we put them in the light compartment, we allow them to enter the dark compartment, and they reach the end of the dark compartment and turn around, and then we just wait 10 seconds and return them to their home cage without giving them a foot shock.
After the initial test, both groups of rats are returned to the alley. Those that received no electrical stimulation quickly enter the dark. But the other group shows a very different result.
After the rat received a foot shock, we returned the rat to the light compartment, and we saw that he didn't enter the dark compartment. We saw that during the training, the rat entered the dark compartment fairly quickly after only a few seconds. But after the training, when we put the rat in the light compartment, he spent many minutes, and probably if we'd left him there would spend up to 10 minutes in the light compartment. So from that we infer that the rat has some memory of the unpleasant experience that he had in the dark compartment. So this change in behavior that we see as a result of experiences is what we consider memory.
Dr. McIntyre's results seem to suggest that the rat assigns the darkness an unpleasant memory and alters its normal behavior. In this case, the mind of a rodent is similar to the mind of the human. Pinpointing how and why a traumatic experience impacts the brain in humans may lead to one day isolating and treating these memories.
There are many people who are suffering from intrusive memories that are so strong that they're haunting and debilitating. So ultimately we hope that this research will help us to better understand what's going wrong when memories are stored and they're too powerful and too intrusive.
If emotionally intense memories can have a prolonged impact on normal, healthy people, what might they do to those who show signs of aggressive behavior or psychopathy? For Andre Chikatilo, negative memories may have been part of the fuel that fired a psychotic mind. Soviet Union, 19